Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us at tmosso at the1916company.com for pricing details of this watch. Today we discuss the trimmest and the slimmest of the Moser Cie Streamliner series. From the company in Schaffhausen, this is the 2023 to present Streamliner Blue Enamel. Launched in 2023, this is the most compact and wearable of the Streamliner integrated bracelet collection that first bowed in 2020. So in stainless steel, 39 millimeters in diameter, 11.2 millimeters thick, and if you measure the first link on each side to its opposite number, you get a distance across the wrist of 45 millimeters. We'll throw the watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and you'll find it wears quite well. This is the most compact of the Streamliners. You can see just how far inboard of the edge of my wrist the edges of the case are. It's also flat, and it'll fit under a sleeve. And from over the top, which always exaggerates the width of a watch, you can still see that the edges of the case are nowhere near the edge of my wrist. As a result, this is the first Streamliner that I can really recommend for both him and for her, and I think a 13.5 centimeter circumference wrist could still wear this well. The nice thing about the Streamliner is you see a lot of references to the 1970s, but not plagiarism. You see this sort of radial sunburst lapping machine laid pattern on the bezel, a tonneau case, a integrated link bracelet that has maybe a little bit of Omega Speed Sonic Chronograph Lobster Tail or a Bell Sport Classic. You've got a tonneau style case, like maybe some of the mid-Mark series Omega Speedmasters, maybe the Oris Chronoris Star. A lot of tonneau watches of the 70s inspired this design, but you don't look at it and say, oh, that's a Nautilus, that's a Royal Oak. It channels the vibe of an era without plagiarizing, and I love that. The bracelet's a great one, too. You could see that the interlinks incredibly precise, with a lot of finishing taking place in places where you ordinarily can't see it, and it's only when you start to articulate the bracelet that you can see how deeply the finishing has been laid down even on underlying components and within the recesses between links. We have satination across the top, then we have lovely little stepped bevels, and we have bevels on the flanks as well. The tolerances on this bracelet incredible, and as you roll it through the light, you can't see any daylight through it. It has an incredible solidity to it. Many removable links mean that you will be able to find the right size regardless of your bracelet and regardless of your wrist needs. But you could see that we have little pins and bars here, so you will need a block and a punch to remove these links and size the bracelet at home. Closing everything up, you can see how the clasp works. We have the Moser Cie coat of arms externally, reminding you that the old Henry Moser company dates back to the 19th century, though it is a modern revival from 2005 to the present. You can see the Brogioli of Italian-speaking Switzerland made this clasp, BRO, that's what that means. Twin trigger release, so you have to press one and then the other sequentially, simultaneously. You see? That's how it works. One, then the other, not enough to open it, both simultaneously, now it opens. And that's important because you don't want this flying open. Pushing one or the other, not enough to open the clasp. Because you've got 120 meters of water resistance, stainless steel, automatic winding, and loom here, this is a clasp suited for a sports watch. Case side, we have a feature common to Moser watches. So Moser watches always feature some sort of case band recess, and sometimes it's just a little scalloped portion. Here it runs end to end, as we have a satin finished recess sandwiched between the polished case back lip and the polished edge of the bezel. We have integration of bracelet and lugs. You can see that well right here. One flows into the other. A screw down crown to help ensure that 120 meters of water resistance. It features a Moser M and two different types of knurling as well as high polish. We have that radial machine laid sunburst. So a lapping machine is what creates this sort of radial pattern. And that's used to create that bezel design, which was so popular in the 70s and lives on the Streamliner. The dial, though, is the highlight. Let's talk about some of the dial furniture, then get to the leading fact and standout feature that will make you love this dial. First, hardware. You can see that they're little baton-style hour indices. A lot of Moser enamel dials before this one featured no indices. That makes this easier to read. We have little ceramic lume inserts atop the hands. That's called globalite. It's very luminescent, but as you can see, it's only applied to the hands. Now, the sub-seconds has a polished chapter ring around it, and then it has a metallic blue scale with a concentric pattern inboard. But the main event is the enamel, and let me explain what's going on here. The dial is coated in a glass-based paint, vitreous enamel, and then fired at 800 degrees centigrade 12 times to create this evenly layered but smoked fade of translucent blue enamel. They call this aqua blue on top of a dial base of solid gold. Now, enamel can be laid down on copper and sterling silver, and I've seen it done. But the best enamel dials feature a gold substrate, and this one features a hammered or chiseled style texture, very similar to Flinke enamel, where you have guilloche and then you have translucent enamel on top. Here you have that hammered-like texture, and then you have translucent enamel on top of that. And it fades from light at the center to almost black navy blue at the edge, that fume or smoked fade, a signature of Moser design. And Moser is quite confident that its design language of both case and dial is so strong that you don't need any Moser branding on the dial. And because Moser goes far above the 60% requirement to be labeled Swiss made, they say they are 95 to 100% Swiss. They don't put Swiss made on their dial. They don't want to use the lower standard. Turning everything over, we get a new movement. This is the Moser HMC 500. Now, this is a new caliber for them. It's got a platinum micro rotor on a ceramic bearing setup for super efficient winding, but the micro rotor also allows you to have the big open display caseback of a manual wind while still having the convenience of an automatic. It also allows this watch to be as thin as if it were powered by a manual wind movement. Now, impressively, it energizes just a single barrel, but 74 hours of power reserve come with it. We have a stop seconds or hacking seconds function. We have a dual anchored balance bridge with a free sprung balance for shock tolerance. Then you can see variable inertia screws on the balance used to make the timing adjustments. So it's a very precise and shock resistant setup. It beats away at 3 Hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour and pivots on 26 joules. And the fun thing about Moser is Moser can make the tough parts of a movement, not just bridges, plates, and wheels. Moser makes the hairspring, the balance, and the escapement itself through its precision engineering subsidiary. And then you can see we have anthracite-coated bridges, partially skeletonized, so you can see some of the works underneath. The watch uses a bidirectional pawl-based magic lever-style winding system, some elements of which can be seen here. You can see there's solarization on the barrel cover, satination on the wheels. We have a mostly machined but handsomely laid bevel. We also have little golden chaton style cups for the drivetrain. And I believe rather than actual pressed chaton, those are actually gold gilded sinks for the jewels themselves, to remind you that that is how watches would have been made back in the 19th century era of Moser watchmaking. And you can see it's all the way from the reduction wheels of the winding system down to the escapement. Screw heads are polished, and you can see quite well. There's 3 different finishes. We have polish, we have media blasting, and we have beveling on the platinum rotor, media blasting on the base plate of the movement, and then double-crested Moser stripes across the bridges. So lots to love right here. It is a great-looking movement, and the most interesting thing Moser has done mechanically in a very long time. This movement is going to be with us for eons, and this was its first application, and a great one. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.